here with me today. I have been spending the past month in the amazing city of Copenhagen, and you're viewing me in my Airbnb, so thus and you just want to hit up a couple. You know which ones will be best for you. I'm going to be telling you about what yarns they offer, the vibe of the shop, the friendliness, the accessibility, and anything else that you may want to know about Copenhagen yarn shops. So please keep watching if you're interested. Be going through these shops in alphabetical order because that seemed like the easiest thing to do. I am amazed at the amount of yarn shops in Copenhagen. I went to 10 and I didn't even go to all of them. So just because it's not on my list doesn't mean it's a bad yarn shop. And I've decided to forgo public transit while I'm living here and just do everything on e-bike. There's an amazing system of e-bikes in the city and I just love exploring the city by bike. And it's a beautiful bike-friendly city as well. So I'm really using the excuse of going to see these yarn shops as a way to explore different neighborhoods. I've met some amazing people and it's just been such a joy. So let's talk about the first yarn shop, Brunstrik. Brunstrik is in the neighborhood. I don't know if it's Frederiksberg or Vesterbro or if it's more downtown. It's kind of in the middle of all of those places. It has a lot of Isager and especially Sandnesgarn. They actually had a decent sales section of Sandnesgarn yarns. That was really love to see that. This is one of a couple stores that I didn't actually buy anything in. A lot of the yarns that they had there I thought were accessible in my area, North America. I'm from Canada. A lot of the yarns, Sandnesgarn, Isager, are accessible to me there. And while I'm here, I'm really looking for yarns that either didn't end up buying anything in the shop, but I think it is a lovely centrally located shop in Copenhagen, and I would definitely recommend giving it a look if you are in the area. The next shop I went to is called Filled. It is in the Vesterbro neighborhood of Copenhagen, which is the area in which I'm staying in. So if I was living here full time, this would be my local yarn shop. It seems very locally owned. I got to meet the owner and she's absolutely lovely. They offer yarns like Fikolana, Isager, and onion yarns. For me, one of the things that I really, and so they had a lot of cotton, linen, plant-based fibers and not as much of the wools, which I was looking for. And so a lot of the options that I wanted for Fikolana, she just didn't have enough for a sweaters quantity. She did offer to order it in for me, and I decided not to take her up on that because I knew I would be going to other yarn stores that likely offered Fikolana. But I do think that this is an absolutely lovely yarn store and it's a lovely owner as well, and I would highly recommend giving a look to it. Has a very like locally owned feel because it is locally owned. I mean, all of them are, but at least on this particular day she didn't have any staff. It was just the owner, and I just love seeing yarn stores like that where they're just like a family-run business. Snefnug Natur from Camrose. It looks like this. I've seen people online compare this to Drops Air, and Drops Air is one of my favorite yarns. It is really fluffy, and what makes it unique from Drops Air is I can't completely read this. It's in this as well. And so the yarn owner had said that she thinks it would be a nice top. And I'll put that up on the screen with the designer. And I've had my eye on that top for a little while, and so I ended up getting 3 of these, which should be super light gray color on the cool spectrum. I've been really drawn to this color lately, as you'll see from some of the other yarns that I've picked up, but I was really happy to be able to find Snefnug, and this is something that I have never seen in the North American shops that I've frequented, and so it was nice to get my hand on a yarn that is new to me, and I really love the feel of it. Garn KBH is in a neighborhood called Valby. It's kind of in the southwest corner of Copenhagen. It's an area that you probably wouldn't frequent if you were just spending a little bit of time in Copenhagen, but it was a really lovely area to walk around in. Honestly, I don't think I would have gone into that area had I not been seeking out this shop. So again, it's been really nice to look at these shops and just see what's in the area, surrounding area of them. The yarns that they offer are BC Garn, Drops, Ficalana, Gaspard, Noro, so a lot of the same varieties that we've seen in other shops. It was a really nice shop. I found that their drop selection in their Ficalana selection was really excellent, and when I was there they actually had a huge sale on drops, so I will post if that's still going on, and it included their kid silk, which is always nice to find on sale. So if you're interested in that, I think it was about 30% off. This was actually the last yarn store I went to, so I actually wasn't looking for mohair, or else I would have, had I known, I would have stocked up there instead of somewhere else. But what I was looking for there was a knit that I've had on my list by Sari Nordland. So let me show you what I got. So when you test knit from Sari Nordland, you get an access to one of her patterns for free, and I had chosen the Vargo pullover for the last test knit I did with her, and I have been wanting to try Ficalana Peruvian Highland wool combination that I'm choosing. I wanted something a little bit more neutral. I was experimenting with some really bright colors. She had initially knit it with Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, and I have some of that yarn at home. It's a really, really lovely yarn, but this was a little bit more of an affordable way to do this sweater. And with the Knitting for Olive, I had an amazing selection of like brighter colors to do this sweater with, but I decided to mirror. Of course the color names aren't on here, but it's a very deep, warm toned gray, almost a dark brown, and then a taupey color. And I love my taupes. I almost went, this is really nice. It's 100% Peruvian Highland wool, so it doesn't have the same, it's not superwash like their Arveda is. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to knit with this. I mean, most people who have talked about online kind of say that it's nothing special really, that it's just a good staple yarn. And it seems like it's similar to how I view Cascade 220 as kind of just easy to work with, that have a decently high spin. And so the stitches really stand out. I think that's really good for color work, and I'm really excited to give these a go. I don't think I've done color work in anything other than Cascade 220. So I'm glad to have a different yarn to be able to do that with. While I was there, they also had these absolutely lovely little sticker collector, but I saw this and I couldn't resist. It's a little gummy. I almost got like a ton of them, but I withstood. I just cute. But I had never seen a stitch marker that's a gummy bear, and I love gummy bears. So I was really excited to find those. She had them in all sorts of colors. Now that I'm talking about it, I almost wish I did get more, but I'm happy to have that little cord that you can use to hold your knitting. And I'll show you in a bit, but I had actually bought a set of them because I have never seen them outside of Copenhagen. I know other stores offer them, but it doesn't seem, I've seen them online, but it doesn't seem to have reached the Canadian knitting audience as big as it is online. So you kind of slip these onto your needles, and then it can hold your knitting. More of these, and to be able to use them, I've been trying them out of my knitting, and I can see why people love them. They are absolutely fantastic to knit with. So that was such a kind freebie. I don't know if it was the owner of the shop that was there. It was a little busy, and so I didn't get to have a chat with her, but she's really, really kind, and I really liked kind of the vibe of this yarn shop. It was like packed to the brim, and I always love to see that in my yarn shops. And so yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you're in the Valby area, taking a quick look into that store. So the next yarn store is over. It has a similar business model as does oh my gosh, We Are Knitters, and that they put kits together with their own branded yarn of wearable garments that you can then go away and knit with. And some of them are actually really, really lovely. Overs, they have them for women and children and babies, and I really enjoy their use of color. They have some wild colorways and wild colorful works, and I'm going to put a few of them up on the screens for you to look at, and they have some really unique offerings there. I was looking on their website and decided to have a look in their shop, and I must say it was a bit of an awkward experience. And you're really interested in getting something, I would just order it for pickup or go in with something in mind. I had went in to just have a gander at their sets, and the way that they have their shop set up in Copenhagen is that they have all of their clothes kind of on racks, and you can say, oh, I like the look of this shirt, what colorways do you offer it in? and then they have swatches. And so it's not that it's a bad setup in terms of like a shopping experience, but it was incredibly awkward the way that they had their shop set up. So they have the storefront in the front, and then they have a curtain that doesn't close all the way, and then all of their office employees in the back, and they're just kind of looking at you shopping sometimes, and you can see them peeking out. And if you're taking a while to kind of look through and feel the offerings as you do when you're in a yarn knitting shop, you can tell that you're kind of taking them away from their other work. It was an incredibly awkward feeling, and maybe I'm putting this on, but when I walked in, someone came out of the back office, and then she just kind of watched me and stood around me, and I felt like I couldn't shop in peace. And so I would say, if you're going to go, they do have some lovely selections. Their materials all felt really nice, looked like decent sets. I do think that you're paying more because you're getting obviously a designed garment. Very similar to We Are Knitters, you're going to be paying more because you're getting a pattern and the yarn all in a kit together. You're paying for the objects that go into that kit, so it's going to be marked up a little bit. But I think it's great for new knitters, or if you see a design that you particularly want. Sometimes it's nice to just have other people put those colors together for you. But I would say just know what you want before walking in there, because if you're going in to just have a gander, just have a look around, you might find it an incredibly awkward experience like I did. And honestly, I don't think it's a great place for just kind of shopping around. I would definitely just, as I've said, just go in there knowing what you want. But I would definitely have a look on their website. They have some really cool stuff, and it seems like a good alternative to some of the more widely known kit-based knitting shops. Now here's the one that we've all been waiting for, Knitting for Olive. Knitting for Olive is in the Frederiksberg neighborhood of Copenhagen, which I recently learned is actually its own little borough. It's kind of self-owned. It's not actually part of the city of Copenhagen, but it is completely engulfed by the city of Copenhagen, which is pretty cool. The Knitting for Olive shop is in a lovely area, but it is a bit off kind of the beaten track of the average tourist, so you will have to kind of get out to it, but it's the kind of shop that I'm sure a lot of knitters will take the journey out to. Don't make the same mistake that I did if you do not speak a Danish or another similar Nordic language. They have their offices and then the shop right beside it, and I accidentally walked into their offices. I don't know who I spoke to, but she was very nice. She's like, "Didn't you see the sign on the door?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't speak Danish." And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. You need to go like one door down." And I felt really bad. It's just like the way that I was walking. I'd seen that door first. It said Knitting for Olive on it, and I walked in and I was like, oh, this doesn't look right. So if you're coming from like the main street, it's like another door down, just so you know. You walk in and they have all of their yarns up for display on the wall, and they have different knitted garments on the bottom so that you can feel what their yarns feel like, knitted in different combinations, which is lovely. As other people have said before, they are still kind of recuperating from their Ukraine relief sale, which is an amazing thing that they did, but they sold out in some of their colors, and that was also reflected in their store. And so if you see it sold out online, I think you'll also find that it is sold out in store. So just be mindful of that. If there's a specific color that you're looking for, trekking out to the store won't ensure that you're able to get it. It seems pretty true to what they have online, but it is lovely to be able to go in person and to check it out. The person that they had behind the counter did not speak to me. It was a little weird. He was really involved with talking to someone else that kind of seemed like his friend. So it wasn't like the most warm, welcoming retail experience. That said, when I walked into the offices, she was super duper nice. So I don't want to like knock the brand at all, but just the person that they had working behind the counter on that particular day was not the most helpful, friendly kind of person. That said, of course, I bought things from Knitting for Olive. I've been waiting for this day, and so let me show you what I got. So I got a selection of yarns, and I've actually knitted something with them already. So let me show you that first. This is my camisole number 6, and it is knit out of their merino cotton and their silk blend. I'll be talking about this more in my podcast about the different colorways, but safe to say I really love these two yarns. I had tried their silk beforehand, and I think it's a really unique yarn. it is more of a matte silk than I've seen anywhere else have. And their cotton merino is also a yarn that I really love and would love to get some more of. It is just a lovely soft merino without the kind of like, sometimes cotton yarns kind of give me the ick, like you feel them and they feel kind of funky. This does not give me the ick, and I think it's because of the merino content in it. They are both fingering weight yarns, and I really enjoyed knitting with them. The other thing I got was their merino in their soft silk. Let me just move this very crinkly bag. So I had initially went in thinking that I was going to go for a navy color, but I didn't think that their navy was particularly unique. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but I think that Knitting for Olive strength is that their color selection is so excellent, and that their color selection for neutrals especially is amazing. They've considered absolutely every single undertone that could ever exist, and I really wanted to play into that. Once I was in there, I could really see what their strengths in colors were, and I would say that the blues, I mean, these blues are absolutely lovely, were exactly what I was looking for, but the blues selection did not impress me as much as their white cream taupe beige into black grays. I think that that is their absolute strength in the way that they formulate and consider their colors, if that makes sense. And so I wanted to play within that palette, and I got these two yarns. So this is the soft silk mohair in the color Putty, and I got 6 of these, and this is in the color Marzipan. With these yarns, I am planning to make the balloon cardigan by Petite Knit. I was looking for a cardigan pattern that was 1 strand of fingering and 1 strand of mohair, and I think that is the best fit for this combination. So I'm really excited to make that. I am just absolutely in love with these colors and the way that they reflect, and the way that they just like add a little bit more interest to what is going to turn out to be basically just a white, off-white cardigan. But I don't know, these colors are just singing to me at the moment, and I just cannot wait to cast this on. I am very, very excited for it. So I would say, yeah, my Knitting for Olive experience was a good one, and I would highly recommend taking the truck out there. It's always lovely. I will say one thing for tourists is that they will not print a receipt for you. They email it to you, which ordinarily I would love that, but if you're planning to claim the tax credit for the EU, my understanding is that you need a printed copy for them to stamp the receipt when they give you that tax credit. And so I am now having to seek out a printing facility in Copenhagen, which I still don't know what my solution for that is going to be. I've gotten some suggestions. I have not sought them out yet. I've got another week and a half here still. Yeah, so that's a little bit frustrating for tourists, and they won't do the tax refund on spot, which is fine. Most places I found do not do the tax refund on spot. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. And I don't think I gave enough context for that. If you are a non-EU citizen and you're spending money in the EU, there is a tax depending on the country that you're in. In Copenhagen, it's 25%. And when you look on your receipt, you can see that it's like a VAT price, I think is what they call it. And if you are a citizen outside of the EU, you can get that refunded. You do not have to pay taxes in a country that you are not a citizen. And so when you go to the airport, you have the option to kind of hand them a stack of receipts, and you will get some, I don't think all of that money back. I think something like 16% of it you get back, like 16% instead of 25%. Something along those lines, but to do it, they need the actual physical receipt. And some shops within Copenhagen, more tourist shops, will advertise that they can do it on the spot for you. So if you show them a passport that's outside of the EU, they can actually just do it on their computer and not charge you to begin with, but that is not common for most shops here, and especially not most independent shops. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're shopping here, that you may need to seek out a printing section of Copenhagen, just north of Knitting for All. That story at when I kind of explained what was going on. They said it you would go to if you were a tourist. There wasn't many shops around. It was a bit of a trek to get up to, so just keep that in mind. But I would say that that yarn store especially was well worth checking out too. Had an amazing local yarn store feel. It was packed to the brim with yarn, and it was just a lovely experience getting there. They offer Drops yarn, Ficolana, Istax, Lang Yarns, Noir Yarn, Permin, Sandus Garn, yeah, any of the yarns that you kind of expect from this area of the world. So nothing kind of out of the ordinary, I'd say. I went in mind, I wanted a fingering with a mohair for a very specific project. And so I managed to get some in this absolutely beautiful green color. So their Vetta is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon, and it's 210 meters per 50 grams. Looks like this. Again, people have said online like it's kind of a bit of a workhorse yarn, that you get it, it's affordable. But again, it's just not something that's very accessible to me. I'd have to buy it in an overseas shop and then pay customs, and so it's much easier to get a hold of while I'm here. It's a yarn that I've wanted to try out for a while. The yarn that most people pair with this is Arvetta Tilia, which is their silk mohair. But while I was there, they actually didn't have a great match for it at the Nicolene Garn store that I was at. And so I actually ended up with some Drops Kid Silk, which is accessory. They're almost perfect. The color is so similar. Kid Silk has pretty much the same content, 75% mohair, 25% silk as the Tilia, but it's considerably less expensive. I find it's way less expensive here than it is to get in Canada, even with the exchange. So I didn't really have a problem with buying it. They had an amazing mohair selection at this shop in general. And so I was able to kind of feel all of them. And I will say first, the Knit Pearl Girl has an amazing video on mohairs, and I will link that below. But the Drops Kid Silk kind of does the trick, but isn't the softest. I would say the softest was probably the one that, what they had there was probably Sandus Garn. Their Kid Silk was really nice. Tilia was also quite nice. I think they had a Noro Yarns Kid Silk, which was also beautiful. They were all softer than this, but I mean, I don't have any problems with this at all. And the color match, like I couldn't say no to that combination. It's beautiful. This color of green is not something that I would normally go for. It's a little brighter than what I'd usually go for, but I think it leans into kind of that that trend that's going around right now of those bright greens without being too overwhelmingly bright. And I am just really loving this color combination and this color in general, and I'm excited with what I'm making with it. And I am actually making a sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I've actually knit almost the whole neckline up, but I won't show it here. I'll show it in my next podcast, so make sure to watch out for that if you'd like to see my progress and how these guys knit up. But I am super thrilled with how that's happening, and I realized that this is actually my first opportunity to knit with it yet. So this is my first time knitting with mohair, and it is so fluffy, and I'm really enjoying the experience so far. And then at this yarn store as well, they had those barber cords, and I have them in my little Ab of the Museum. They did not come with this. This I got in Stockholm, but they had a whole set of them, all of these, for what were they? It was 25 kroner, which is the equivalent of like $5. So they had all different sizes. So this is kind of the biggest one, and then they had smaller ones, and they're all sorts of colors. And so I thought it was a really good deal. I saw them and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the cords, because I hadn't seen them anywhere else. So yeah, I'm super excited to have these. I've used them, like I said, to try on stuff, and what a great price as well, like super duper affordable. My only thing is, like, I'm glad I got this pouch because I would have no idea how to store all of these barber cords. I mean, they're just sitting in here, but like I don't have a good spot in my like knitting bag to hold them. So if you have a good solution for that, let me know. But I think this pouch is probably the way it'll go. And I mean, other than this trip, I'm not going to be like carrying around. But yeah, that was a really good shot to go into, but it's a bit out of the way. So yeah, go if you really are looking for, I think it's the best selection of both Drops and Ficalana. If you're looking for those two brands together at the same time, I think this is a really good shop for you to check out. The next shop is called Self-Made. It is in the Vesterboro neighborhood, and they have their own brand, I think, of yarn. I haven't been able to find this yarn anywhere else, and honestly, I didn't know this was a yarn shop. I was just walking down the street and I saw in the window some yarn, so of course I went in. And Self-Made is predominantly a fabric shop. They've got a whole bunch of lovely fabrics to go check out. So if you're also a sewer, I would absolutely recommend acrylics to wools to cashmere to cotton. Really a beautiful brand called Freya, and all of their yarns are branded as something Freya. So they have like Friendly Freya and Bold Freya and things like that, and different combinations. And they had beautiful swatches of all of their yarns as well. And it was a really just lovely experience to be able to walk around, and it's not huge. It's everything that you could probably need to complete a project, but it wasn't such a huge selection that it was overwhelming. And so I would absolutely check this out. I was really impressed, and pretty good prices as well. I did end up getting some yarn, of course. This isn't, I don't have anything in mind for a specific, but yeah, let me just show you what I got. So I got the grams, it's 350 meters. This would be considered, I think, a lace weight or light fingering. It's a green color, but it has beautiful blues in it. It's really cool. And I just found that this little thing that they put on the end says "You found me" on the end of the ball, which is so cute. And to pair with that, they had this mohair, which is again like a bluey greeny mohair in 30% silk, and it is so soft. And it's really beautiful, and I thought that these two together would just make a really beautiful something. I don't know. I got 4 of each, or 3 of each? 4 or 3 of each. And yeah, I think honestly it was this colorway. I could not pass it up. It's just beautiful. I'm trying to get a good, maybe that's the best view of it. But yeah, if you were in, so I mean, it's not like you're going too far. It's on a main street that has a lot of good eats. So, and if you are someone that is a sewer, it might be a good destination for you to go to. But yeah, I looked up, I really couldn't find anything about this Freya yarn line online. So if you have information about this, please let me know. But for a like brand to have their own yarn line and it to be this comprehensive, I'm really impressed. So I thought that this yarn would be like somewhere else, but I don't know. It has the little name Stoff and Still on the bottom, so maybe that's a hint. But yeah, anyway, I was really happy to find this yarn. The next shop is Sommerfuglen. Sommerfuglen. You tell I don't speak Danish. And they are probably the most central yarn store if you are coming to Copenhagen as a tourist. It's in a very touristy Rose, Ficalana, Hedgehog Fibers, Isager, Knitting for All of really yummy yarn brands. It seemed like more of an American brand of yarn, so that was really interesting to see. And a really lovely selection, a pretty large store to walk around. They had some staff around and really lovely selection of handmade items out on display. I will say that's one thing for Copenhagen Yarn Store as much in the Canadian yarn stores, as they don't have as many samples out. So that was really lovely to be able to like touch and feel all of the amazing yarns that they have. One thing that was weird to me is that their selection of Ficalana, they didn't have Tilia. Sorry, Vetta with some Tilia, and I'll mix them together. And they didn't have Tilia. They only had more of the premium, I guess. They're not even kind of like a mohair wall, and they didn't have Tilia, which I thought was kind of odd. But other than that, they're very lovely. Having me in the store, they checked out like 6 people before me because they had been being helped by people, and they just like let them skip the line in front of me. But I found something that's kind of like odd. So that might just be a me thing and not like a this store thing, but I'll just note it. So I got 2 things in this yarn store. The first thing is this Sandisgarn Tresco yarn, accessible in my area, but I've never seen this particular yarn. It is a, I think 80% wool, 20% nylon. And online it says this is a sport weight. I would say this seems thicker to me than a sport weight. It looks like more of a DK weight to me. But they say it's a sport weight. It's definitely a rough Ronar, which is like $4 a ball. Like ridiculously cheap yarn. I don't know if it was on sale or if that's just the price of this yarn, but I picked up 6 of them and I think I'm gonna make a vest out of it. I really liked this colorway. And I was confused about why it was so cheap, to be honest. It's like, is it a bad yarn? I really like it. I mean, it's definitely a rougher feeling yarn than a lot of what Sandisgarn produce, but it feels like the Canadian grown yarns that I've used before. So I don't know why people wouldn't use it. It just feels like kind of like a hard wearing yarn. So I think with 6 of them, I'll definitely be able to get a vest out of it. If not, maybe even a like a cropped sweater. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to knit up with this guy. And then the other thing that I got was this Crea Deluxe organic cotton. I have some of this at home in green color, but I got this specifically to go with another. Feels nice to me. I don't immediately recoil from touching it. And that is what I look for in my cottons. It's in the color 09. And they had a good selection of this, by the way. They also have a decent selection of knitting for Olive. So if you are looking to get some knitting, they had a decent selection, obviously not as large of a selection at the actual Knitting for Olive store, but if you are needing to stay downtown, you can probably pick up what you want, or at least something adjacent to what you were hoping for from Knitting for Olive. The last one, second last one, sorry, is Valby Garn Centrum. It's in the Valby neighborhood and it's kind of right around the corner from Garn KBH. And I tried to get into the store and I could not find the entrance. I was kind of locked. And then there was a sign on it that seemed to suggest that you go to another door. There was like an air ring in the window and it was a beautiful window display and I literally just couldn't get into the store. So I would say don't venture out to this store. They also don't have a website. The only reason I was going to them is because I was going to the other store around the corner. And I'm sure they have a lovely collection of yarn there. I just wouldn't know because I couldn't get into it. This is what you do when you're traveling to places that don't speak the language. And I mean, they have great English here. If you're coming here, do not worry. You can speak to pretty much anyone in English. I've only had like one conversation with a man where it got signs that really get to me. They don't have, we were in Holland before this, in Amsterdam, and all the signs were in English and in Dutch, which was really nice. And then I got here and I thought it'd be the same because their English coverage is like 80-something% of people speak English, and all the signs are in Danish, as they should be. I'm in a Danish country, but I can't read anything here, so I feel like sometimes I'm just like walking into areas I shouldn't be walking into and like just not having no idea what's going on. I was on a train and they had said something and it was just embarrassing. Anyway, the joys of traveling in a country where you don't know the language at all. And that's a me thing. I mean, I'm the one that's like thrusted myself upon their country and I'm like the bumbling tourist. But anyway, I could not figure out how to get into this yarn shop. So if you are like me and you don't speak Danish, I would not recommend seeking it out. Don't go out to find this yarn store, but if you're in the neighborhood, see if you can find a way in and then let me know, because I did not go to. I tried. I saw it. I came, I saw, I did not conquer. So that's a little embarrassing. But the 10th yarn store I did go into and it was one of my favorites. So the last yarn store I went to is called Woolstock. It is, I don't know what the neighborhood's called, but it's pretty north in Copenhagen, definitely outside of the tourist area, but it's a lovely, lovely bike ride to get out there. You kind of follow a canal. And so if you are wanting to get on a bike and explore some of the city, I would definitely recommend taking the trek out to the store and go for breakfast. They are a yarn store / cafe, which is really cool. I actually didn't end up getting coffee there because I went at like middle of the day and just buy a coffee, and it really seems like a beautiful community space. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of that and going. I was speaking to the owner for a little bit and she was really lovely. She gave me some suggestions of some off the beaten path neighborhoods to check out that have amazing like coffee, shopping, kind of atmospheric type spaces, and I haven't gotten to check out any of them because since then I went to Stockholm and then I've just been kind of outside, so if you can hear that, I'm so sorry, but the joys of living in a Nordic country. But anyways, this yarn store has mostly Italian brands of yarn, which I thought was interesting, especially for a place that I consider to be, I don't know, I just thought it would be filled, like all the stores would be filled with more Nordic yarn, but she had a lot of Italian and more Southern European brands of yarn, which was Seagarn, Permin, Regia. I don't know if those are actually Italian. There was a dog! And he was so cute. He ran up to me and he gave me kisses and he like snuggled his little butt into my body, and I gave him lots of pets, and the owner seemed mortified that he like ran out, but I was so happy. I miss my dog so much. He's being well taken care of at home. One of my good friends is staying at our place and is taking care of my sweet dog, and I just miss him so much. It is the only thing like homesickness I have, is I just want to snuggle my puppy, and so to meet another dog was just like the joy of my life, and to get to meet him made me so happy. It like filled my soul, and now this is my favorite yarn shop just because I got to meet a dog. Very exciting. But I guess she wanted me to like actually shop and not just like spoil the dog with lots of pets. But I did get some yarn. The yarn that I got was this Adrifil, see, Italian, am I wrong? Lana Natural Inca. It's an eco yarn. It's 50% alpaca and 50% wool. It looks like this. This was one of these instances where the swatches really got to me. I got 4 balls of this. My plan is to make a vest, but there was actually another colorway that I liked better in the skein, better than the yarn that I had initially got. So I was super pleased that she had so many swatches out, and yeah, I don't know, I just really love the colors, the speckling on this yarn. You can tell that I have a thing for this. Is so unbelievably soft because of the alpaca content, and I'm just really excited to get to knit with this. I'm thinking a vest. I'm thinking vest number 2, but I am not completely sold on that. Maybe one of the pullovers. Excuse me. But yarn shops that I've been to in Copenhagen. What are my final thoughts? If you are coming here as a tourist, obviously don't go to all 10 yarn shops. There is a lot of repeats. I would say if you are coming for a day and you need to stay central and you just want to check out a yarn shop, I would say that Sommerfugl, the only one I can't say, Fuglin, it has butterflies, is the way to go for you. I will link them all below, but you'll be able to get Knitting for Olive, you'll be able to get some Fikalana, you can get some Sandisgarn. Like, I think it has the best selection of most of the Nordic yarns that you're going to be looking for in a central place. If you have a couple extra days and you're able to go beyond that, I would say my next favorite stores, Knitting for Olive, obviously, Nicoline Garn, definitely Filled, and Woolstock would be the ones that I would consider based on what kind of yarns that you were looking for. And I am just saying Woolstock for the dog and the atmosphere. If you're like going somewhere and you just miss like a knitting community, I think it's the best place to find fellow knitters and get to talk to some locals. So yeah, those are my general suggestions. It's really cool being in Copenhagen. There's so many more people knitting in public. I've seen so many more knits out in public as well, like so many petite knit patterns just being worn by people, and that's not something I ever see at home. I don't think I've ever seen someone knitting a handmade garment that I recognize, and I see it almost every day here. It is really cool to be in a city where knitting is such a predominant part of the culture. And every time I go into these yarn stores and buy something, and the owners are always like, do you not have this in America? And I say, I'm Canadian, but not as much. They're always shocked. They're like, do you not have local yarn stores? And I'm like, I have one within a 50-kilometer radius from me, and if you go to like to get it to Copenhagen, I hope you have an absolutely amazing time. And I hope that this video obviously didn't cover all of them. One thing I was surprised about is Hobby is based here, and I thought that they'd have like a factory store or something. They don't, that I could find anyway. They seem to have stores in other cities, but not in Copenhagen that I could find, at least. And there was another brand that was based here that does have a store, but it's like really far out of town. I can't remember the name of it right now. But anyways, there's also a lot more yarn shops, kind of like, so I really went to a small selection of them, but I think I went to the ones that are probably most accessible to a tourist. And yeah. Mix that are beautiful, they had them. So if you are looking for those, Filled is your place, and you might be able to buy them online. That's the other thing, if you're not coming to Copenhagen, a lot of them said that they do ship internationally, so that's great to know. And so if you are people that are outside of the Copenhagen area, like most of us I'm sure are, will say every time I order from Europe I'm hit with customs. So I don't know if that's a Canadian experience. And yeah, I hope you're all having an amazing week. If you have any comments below, and also tell me what you're knitting on, and I'm excited to see you next time for, I think it'll be a podcast next time, so I'm excited to show you what I'm knitting on. Next podcast, I think I might be in England, and then I'll finally be coming home. So yeah, anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye.